Hello there. That is going to be the second episode of Heavy Stuff. And this one will be about human connections and social life in general. There's something important about human connection that doesn't get talked about often enough, and honestly enough, I think. Because you can be an outgoing person. You can enjoy being around people. You can be good at making conversation, making other people being seen. You can be good at all of those stuff and still feel exhausted by connection. Not anxious, not socially awkward or anything. Not like lonely in the today's dramatic or fucking Sigma whale type of way. Just overwhelmed in a quiet and somewhat confusing sense. Because on paper, everything seems fine. You meet new people, conversations flow naturally, you laugh, exchange stories, and you leave the connection feeling like that was quite nice. But what happens is later, when you are alone in a sense, oh fuck, I just kicked the tripod, bro, what the fuck? But later, when you're alone, you replay it in your head and realize something which is quite strange. Yes, the interaction happened, but it didn't stay with you in a sense, you know what I mean? It didn't leave weight. It didn't settle anywhere deep enough to make you feel nourished. And that's when connections start to feel shallow. Not because the people you have these connections with are shallow, which, to be honest, many of the people you will have somewhat of a connection, even in a small talk sense, will be shallow people. But that's just not the only problem. But because the bond never really found a place to, root itself. And what makes this even harder to understand is that we're rarely taught to question why connection feels different in different stages of life. We just assume that something changed in us, that we've become colder, more distant, or maybe less appreciative. I don't really think that's the whole truth. I really think that a part of this thing that we assume has changed sometimes can be about personality, but it has like something about the environment that you're in. When you're in the same environment all the time, connection forms almost like effortlessly. Think about school, same classroom, same people, same routines every single day. You don't need emotional depth right away. You don't need that much emotional vulnerability to form a connection. You just sit next to someone long enough for life itself to happen between you without any extra effort. You share boredom, like stress before exams, even inside jokes that don't even make sense to anyone outside. You watch each other grow in real time without noticing it, and slowly, without an intention, a real bond between you forms. Not simply because the connection was intense, but because it was repeated in a sense, if you know what I mean. The time did the work for you. And then life shifts. Suddenly you're thrown into environments that are louder, faster, more vibrant and chaotic in a sense, and much more unstable. That's what happened in the case of me. In university, new cities, new schedules, new versions of yourself and everybody else. And suddenly, nothing is consistent anymore. People just come and go. Everyone's busy. Everyone is trying to build something. You meet people that you feel like you could be close to, people you like genuinely like being around, but you just don't see them often enough, at least not consistently or naturally, or not without effort. Connection simply becomes something you have to maintain, schedule, and sometimes even repeatedly initiate. And that just changes everything. Because now depth isn't guaranteed by time, it's something that you just hope to happen. And when it doesn't, you start questioning yourself. You start asking things like, why does this feel so light, so shallow? Why don't I feel fulfilled the way I used to after socializing? Why do I keep missing people who are not here anymore? And without even meaning to, you compare, not out of sheer arrogance, not out of dissatisfaction with the people in front of you, but because of the fact that you've known what depth feels like beforehand. Long-term friends, shared history, and just the feeling of being understood without explanation. With those people, you don't need to introduce yourself every time. You don't just need to perform a version of who you are. You're just already known. And when distances enter the picture, like different cities, different lives, that absence becomes just louder than you expect. You can just be surrounded by people, but still miss specific ones. And that doesn't mean that you're just stuck in the past. It means you've formed something real. And this is just where the exhaustion starts creeping in, because many new connections just ask something from you, like energy, presence, constant energy and presence, and emotional availability. Again, it's not fake. You're not pretending, you're not manipulating, you genuinely care. But some connections require you to show up as a version of yourself, while others allow you to simply just exist. And performance, even authentic performance, becomes tiring. Not because you don't like people, but because you can't just live in on mode forever. And this doesn't apply just to friendships. Romantic connection follows the same principles basically. We like to tell ourselves, at least I like to tell myself, that I don't need closeness and affection to be mentally stable and healthy. But independence doesn't just cancel biology. We are wired from caveman times. Humans are just wired for connection, and not like shallow connection, not consistent just stimulation, but meaningful presence, romantic closeness, emotional intimacy, being and feeling chosen and understood. These things aren't like extras, they regulate us, they ground us. And when they're missing, even temporarily, something just feels off, even if life itself looks like full. Here's the part people generally don't like to admit. You can have a healthy routine like discipline, goals, ambition. Those things are, I think, they are necessary in order to live a good and fulfilling life. And even if you have those things in your life, which I feel like a part of them I have, I go to the gym consistently 5 to 6 times a week. I diet very hard. I like to read books. I like to be in this journey of self-improvement. But as I said, you can have all these things and still feel emotionally undernourished, if you can understand what I'm trying to say. What I've realized with the decisions that I've made in the past, connection isn't always weakness. Wanting depth isn't always neediness. It's simply mental nutrition. Some interactions energize you for the moment, while others sustain you long term. And when you go too long without second type of connection, even a busy social life can just feel hollow. And what makes this even more painful is that there is no villain, no like dramatic loss, just a very slow and subtle realization that life has entered a phase where depth itself takes longer and absence just feels heavier, and that's uncomfortable. Gratitude is really important to me. In fact, I have in my routine a gratitude part, which I get up every morning and try to write things that I'm grateful for. Gratitude really helps about this because feeling this way doesn't exactly mean that you're just ungrateful. And I really hope it doesn't mean that you've become emotionally unavailable, because that's what I felt like when I looked at the past and thought about all the newer connections that I've had with people. Even if these stuff are heavy, I want to come to an end of this video with something gentle. Not like an advice from someone who has figured it all out, because honestly, I am not even close to figuring absolutely anything out in life yet. But just a thought from someone who is trying to figure things out himself. Maybe not every connection is meant to fulfill you. Maybe some are just meant to lightly exist without pressure. Maybe depth doesn't respond well to force. Maybe it responds well to time and consistency. And maybe missing people who aren't physically around anymore doesn't necessarily mean that you are holding yourself back. Maybe it just means that you are or were at some point in life loved well. You were loved well. You are loved well. If you started to feel tired from connections, maybe it's not because you just don't care anymore. Maybe it's because you care deeply and you are unable to express those emotions, and depth started to cost you energy. Trying to be more patient with yourself might be the solution to this. I am trying it currently as well. Maybe just let time do what it's always done best and just let things flow. And it's important not to confuse exhaustion with emptiness. Sometimes it's just proof that what you're searching for actually matters. And that's all I've had to say for this video, for this episode of Heavy Stuff. I know the camera angle and the lighting is a bit shitty, and I'm sorry. That will be fixed in the next videos, I hope so. And thank you for watching this video. If you have any ideas that can contribute to the channel and help me make better videos, maybe ideas, maybe things that you want to hear about from a 20-year-old who is also trying to figure his way through life, can comment down below. That would make me really happy. You can leave a like. If you liked watching this video, you can consider subscribing. Peace.